Hi friends, happy Friday. Welcome to Coffee Talk with Ashley and Locke. I'm just waiting for him to join. I think he's gonna probably join like a minute or two later because the clocks are different. I love this mug. It's the best mug ever. It has like different Wonder Womans from like the different years. So like 1960, which one starts? 1940s, all the way to 2010. How great is that? The little things, my friends. A Wonder Woman mug gets me all excited. He's coming soon, I promise. Hey, Anna. Hey, friend. We're waiting for Locke to join. He's downstairs with the kids, so he has to get them all settled. Oh, there he is. There he is. Yeah. He's coming. Slowly but surely. Hey.
Hello.
All right.
All right. I'm ready.
You ready? How are you?
Yep. I am good. How are you?
I'm good.
It's
I was,
it's like we didn't just talk to each other in person 5 minutes ago.
I know. I was just telling, well, it was just Hannah at the time, all the, how cool it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonder that is a very cool mug.
It's a really
Is
cool.
that yeah, a replacement for the one that was broken
No,
somehow?
I think I had this one too, and then I just happened to bring. I had like a collection of them, and then yeah. Um, so we can get started whenever you want.
All right. So, let me get the quote out, make sure I'm reading it right.
Okay.
I'll find it eventually. All right. So this is I want to hear your thoughts on this quote. I know you have thoughts. You always have thoughts.
Lots of thoughts.
Bring the good thoughts.
Okay.
All right. So here's a quote. You will always be too much of something for someone. Too big, too loud, too soft, too edgy. If you round out your edges, you lose your edge. And I honestly don't know where that quote came from. I like to give people credit for their quotes. I don't know who said that. So if it was you, I'm sorry. But what are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I could go all day on this topic. Uh, for me, it makes me think of. So I'm very introverted, and I often find myself saying that I don't like to be the center of attention. I've never liked to be the center of attention. And while I believe that's true, um, I think somewhere in my childhood years, I was taught to play small, and taught either that I wasn't good enough or like I was different. So because I was different from most people, that I should kind of hide. Um, and I don't want to be the center of attention now, but I do want to be a voice in the world. And I think that I've allowed whatever conditioning I got as a child telling me that I should play small and that I'm different kind of get into my head as a grown up. And I don't know
It's
exactly.
hard not to.
Yeah. And I don't know when it happened for me, but something clicked inside of me that was like roaring, that was like, you need to have a voice in this world and you need to tell your story and you need to be loud. And by loud, it doesn't mean like screaming on the top of my lungs because that's not me, but being
Right.
loud means put myself out there more and stop playing so damn small because I
Yeah.
was put in this world to play small, but the conditioning that I had and whatever that was, there was many things piled on top of each other, um, told me that I needed to play small. So,
For sure. Yeah, I think so. What you just said reminded me of another quote, actually. Um, and I think this quote specifically applies to what's going on in the world today, whether it's, the economy or COVID or vaccines or global warming or whatever it is that people are talking about. What you just said reminded me of the quote, just because you're the loudest doesn't mean you're right.
yeah,
And I think that's kind of, if you're, that's not the loud you're talking about. When
no,
you said be loud, you got the urge to be loud. Um, it's not, I'm just going to yell louder about, and that could be metaphorically yelling on social media
yeah,
about whatever your belief is. It's become, all of the things I just listed have become like a giant shouting match. That's not what you're talking about.
yeah,
Um, it's about being yourself. It ties into the quote we did last week from Dr. Seuss. I think that was last week. To be yourself, and those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
hmm,
It ties right into that. And I think you said something about, being how you were, what it kind of came from being a kid. I think it's hard not to. I think everybody gets that, and we all get it in different ways. And I'm not trying to discount what you're feeling. I'm just saying, growing, I think this is common. I think this is this feeling that we need to, whether it's playing small in what we're trying to do, or it's just not putting ourselves out there. I talked last week about, you brought up having fun like a kid, and I talked about how important a lesson that was from our kids, for me,
yeah,
was to, like, stop being so damn serious all the time. Like, I
yeah,
can be a wise ass and I can make jokes, but then the flip side of that is I am really hesitant to just be a goofball in front of total strangers. And
yeah,
so I have a little bit of the same thing, and I like the end of this quote that I read to you, the end that says, if you round out your edges, you lose your edge. And yeah, that makes total sense. You, Ashley, are special because you're kind of, I say weird, but not in a bad way. I don't want to be normal. You don't want to be normal. Our edges are what make us special. Our edges are why we have something important to say, because it's a unique perspective.
yeah,
So by trying to fit in, you're going to lose that.
yeah,
And we already see it with our kids. And, you know, I don't like seeing that when our kids are worried about what other people will think, or
mhm,
each other, even just each other, picking a show to watch at night before bed, asking the other person what they want to watch instead of picking what you
okay,
want to watch.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's like what I said, it's just not playing small anymore. Whatever conditioning you get as a child, whether you are loud and your parents tell you to be quiet, and you're like, but this is naturally how I am. Me, I was naturally quiet. I'm naturally introverted. I don't like being the center of attention, but that doesn't mean that I don't have things that I want to say and things that I feel and a story to tell and a voice that wants to be heard. But I somehow convince myself that no, I'm introverted, I'm quiet, like I don't want to be heard. I don't want people to look at me. And not true. And I think there was a lot of confidence in there too. There was a lot not believing in who I was. So
Yeah. I agree. All right. You want to ask me the question?
yeah, this kind of, we always end up doing this and not on purpose, which is crazy, but this kind of ties into the quote in a way. Um,
Yeah.
what would you change about the way that you were raised?
Um, yeah. So for me, it's really easy to go down like a spiral of regret in my life. You've seen this. I wish I worked harder at this. I wish I hadn't have decided to do this. I wish I would have done better in this. And where could I be if I had done this, and all that stuff. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about what my, you know, kind of trying to outline what my answer to this question would be. And I think I'm very thankful for my parents. Um, I don't know that I would change anything, even though I think there are things that if I'm going to look at my kids and how I want to parent, there are things that we're already doing differently, but that's not an indication of kind of, I don't know, if I feel like there's a lot of things that I could, if I'm not careful, if they had only done this, I would have been so much better off at blah, blah, blah. And I think what I realized thinking through this answer was, you tell me all the time, if I had applied myself more at this, or if I had tried that, I wouldn't be the same person I am today. I wouldn't be where I was when we met. Maybe we wouldn't have met. Maybe we wouldn't have liked each other. Whatever, these really important things that in my life now might not have happened. I
Yeah.
needed to go on my journey. And so part of my journey was how my parents parented. And I don't have major complaints at all. I think our parents do the best that they can for the most part. There are some that are just total
Yeah.
not great parents. But and my parents are not watching, so I'm not softening my answer. Although I think your mom is watching. So
Yeah.
um, it's just I don't think I would change anything because it it made me who I am now. And so it reminds me of actually a story from my mom. So my mom, as you know, has some um, frustrations with her parents.
Hmm.
Her dad, my grandfather, has passed, and my grandmother is still alive. Um, and she has some real, um, I don't want to say baggage because it makes it sound insulting, but some real things that still bother her, and she kind of wants to say but doesn't want to say to her mom. And it reminds this whole question reminds me of something that she told me very young about specifically her dad, but I think it was both her parents. And she was not a fan of the way she was treated. And
Yeah.
I think that I'm not aware of all the stories. But what stuck with me was she told me that the way that she was parented was an example for exactly how she wasn't going to parent. She came to that conclusion either when she was pregnant with my older brother. I don't know. Before I came along, and I remember being very young, talking about it with her, and she said, she used that as it was a negative example in one way, but she used it as an example of how she didn't want to parent. And so I think that was valuable to her. There are a lot of things that she was frustrated about from her childhood, but she wouldn't have been the parent that she was for me
Yeah.
if she didn't have that experience. If she wanted to go back and change something about how she was raised, she wouldn't have that blueprint of kind of what not to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's my answer in a nutshell. I don't think I would change anything, and that's at first glance that was hard for me to say because I do one of, as you know, kind of my default feeling when looking at the past is regret, not
That's
doing it good enough.
that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, is that your answer? Is your answer different today than your answer would have been like 2 years ago?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't know about 2 years ago, but 10 years ago, yeah, I would have been all woe is me.
Yeah.
But how much time do you have for me to list everything that my parents screwed up in me and all the shit that they caused, right?
Yeah.
And to be clear, they didn't. My parents were good parents.
Yeah.
There was nothing horrible happened to me in my life. They didn't well, my mom jokes that she dropped me on my head. We don't know if that's true or not. Only she knows. But I could have come up with a list of a mile long 10 years
Yeah.
ago, probably even more recently than that. And I think that's easy to do, but that's a really good question.
Yeah. Because I know for myself, I mean, in my 20s, I was woe was me. I was all these things that happened to me that I won't get into, but I was really angry and bitter about it. sorry, I went out. Our
Yeah, we
parents do
lost
the
you.
best that they do with what they have. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay. But my answer now for versus my answer 10 years ago is very different. And I honestly do believe that everything that happens to us in childhood and our younger adult years happens for a reason. And it might be really shitty during that. And even after looking back, saying, like, why did I have to experience that? Why me?
Yeah.
I think if you can look at it with different eyes and say, like, honestly, I know the person that I am right now today, I would not be if I had not gone through the things that I had gone through. Um, I love the person that I am right now. So it's,
Well, that's a big step for you.
yeah,
And I think it's important to say, like, we don't have to go down our childhoods,
no,
but I think it's important to point out as you're saying that, because, you know, you said something about how tough it might be in the moment. So
mhm,
if you're looking back at your childhood, and or people listening to this are looking back at their childhood and they're thinking, well, this really terrible thing happened to me. Give me a good reason why that happened.
yeah,
That's a valid response,
yeah,
and I want to point out for you, you had some really terrible things happen to you,
yeah,
um, and so for you to be able to say that, that's not somebody who, like, for me, I lived a pretty sheltered life as a child.
yeah,
Um, and I fully admit that. It's not me saying, oh, yeah, all the bad things, there's a plan for that. There's a
yeah,
reason that it happened. You've been through a lot. And so I think that's important to point out. And that's not, it's easy to go, woe is me, and that thought process right now.
yeah,
But I'm saying this to say that that's a big step for you.
yeah,
There's a lot of growth that went into getting you to that point. Um, and there was a lot of times where you were like, I know that there's a reason I'm going through this or I went through this, but what the F? Like,
yeah,
really? Couldn't there have been a simpler lesson to learn?
yeah.
Or something, some simpler, gentler way to prepare me for what I'm supposed to do? But that's a beautiful thing that you can say that, considering the pain that you had to go through.
And I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that there's not times where it gets a hold of me, because it does. Like, there are times where things that had happened, things that are happening, um, eh, in the midst of the chaos, it's it's easy to revert back to the way you were as a child.
Yeah.
And I think that just comes with time too, with the growth and time. Like, there's no finish line to growth. There's no, like, you cross this line and you're like, oh my God, I'm happy and perfect. Like, that never happens. And I think some people have this unrealistic vision of that happening. I know I did. Like, I was like
Yeah.
pissed. I'm like, I do all this work on myself and, like, I still feel like crap. And for me, I needed to realize, like, that's part of it. And, like, you don't reach this point where, what was the thing I said about the universe? Like, you're like, oh yeah, I've done all this healing work. Like, I got this. And then the universe laughs at you and says, and throws more huge
Yeah.
obstacles in your path. And it's all
Yeah.
about how you handle those obstacles. They're never going to go away. The way you react to them is going to change over time, but they just don't, like, poof, disappear. And actually, when you start to grow and evolve, you start to notice that maybe more are coming at you. Like, it
Yeah.
feels like more. And it's easy to revert back to old patterns where woe is me, or why does this always happen? I put so much work in. I think as long as you can pull yourself back from that, and every single time something big happens, you get a little bit better at dealing with it, and your growth is a little bit better, like the
Mm.
baby step thing. Um,
Yeah. Like
so
you said in a previous conversation, each kind of stressful situation, whatever you want to call it, stress or painful, it's getting you, once you prove you can handle that, it's something a little bit bigger is going to come, and it's going to
yeah,
keep getting you ready for bigger and bigger things, and you can handle more than you think you can.
yes.
Um, what you just said reminds me, the other piece I would add, it's normal to revert back a little bit sometimes. It reminds me, we had for years, we had something on our fridge where it was, it was a picture of a straight line up with an arrow. And it said, what people think success looks like, straight line up. And then underneath it, it said what success actually looks like. And it started off straight, and then it was this giant squiggly all over the place with a little arrow up at the top. And it's absolutely true. You're going to grow, and you're going to get some easy wins, and then the universe is going to throw something at you, and maybe you slip backwards, or maybe it's for no good reason at all. Maybe it's just time and your habits start to slip or something like that. I think that's a great point that you made. It's normal to revert. It doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you have to accept that you're now stuck at this lower level. You just keep growing.
Yeah. It doesn't mean you're screwed for life and that like the world is ending. It just means that you're actually living your life and on a healing journey and evolving. Um, and also, I think that when you're when you're trying to break patterns and create new big things, I think that's when, especially when things get thrown in your way, because it's like almost asking you, God, the universe, whatever you believe in, is asking you, like, are you serious about this? Or, are you just
Testing
go
you.
back to playing small? Like, yeah, like testing what you're really gonna do. And that's also hard to it's easy to give into the, well, I don't feel good today, so I'm not gonna do that, or I didn't sleep last night, or this really like I don't remember what we were supposed. Oh, I had one of my first coaching calls like the day after our daughter broke her leg, and I
Yeah.
wanted to be like, our daughter broke her leg, like I can't have this coaching call with my client. And you looked at me and you were like, Ashley, like you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. I mean, you were understand. I had been up literally all night in the ER with her, and I think and it's trying to sleep on the couch with
Yeah,
her. And I think I got like 45 minutes of sleep before I had to take our other two daughters, or no, yeah, our other two daughters to doctor's appointments,
yeah,
and then come back to then be on dad duty with all four, so you could do your coaching call. And I think you were like, honey, I can cancel it. And I was like, no freaking way, no
yeah,
way, I'll survive. But for us to get there,
yeah.
we went through years where it we would fall into that trap where
Hmm.
you didn't feel good and you say, okay, well, I'm canceling this today.
Yeah,
And and I kind of had years where I was the exact opposite, and it doesn't matter how bad I felt, I wouldn't cancel it. I would show up to the point where I gave myself chronic migraines
yeah,
almost every night for a while. And, I had to, my body was like, okay, well, you're not going to listen to me. I'm going to make your head hurt so bad you puke. And I had to, it was the opposite of, so now we're where we are. And it goes back to the question, what would you change about the way you were raised? Well, what would we change about the way that we've lived our adult lives?
yeah,
And the mistakes that we made even this year, the past 12 months, well, I'm not sure I would change any of them.
yeah,
So there's there's a lesson to be learned, and that's a really shitty answer sometimes,
yeah.
because you might not like the lesson that needs to be learned. You might not know what it is.
That's a
And I'm the first to get annoyed about this situation where I'm like, I know there's a lesson. It doesn't matter. I'm pissed off.
yeah.
What were you saying?
Well, you can be mad, and you
Yeah.
don't want to say that like you can't be mad in the moment. You're allowed to be mad, give yourself grace, and heal, and then move on. But I don't know what I was saying. It left.
They
It
left the
left.
building.
Yep.
All
Um,
right.
but yeah.
Okay. Well, somebody's trying to get her face on camera.
Hello, Nero.
Yeah, she's naked. All right. Good question. Good quote. Good
Good.
answers.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add before we take off?
I want to say hi to everybody that said hi. I can't look and talk and do all that stuff. I haven't got
Multitasking.
so
Multitasking is overrated.
I like I'm like trying to look and then I'm like I'm gonna like bloop, it's gonna be gone. So
Yeah.
um and then if when this goes on the regular feed, if anybody wants like has a good quote or a good question that they want to suggest that we talk about, that's awesome. Um and I think that's all for today.
Cool. We'll see you guys next week, Friday, 8:30.
Bye.